I never thought I'd be posting here, but I guess life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. I'm John, 32M, and I've been married to Sarah, 30F, for 5 years now. We met in college, dated for a few years, and tied the knot in what I thought was a fairy tale romance. We've always had a good relationship, or so I thought. We both have stable jobs, we bought a house together last year, and we were even talking about starting a family soon. Everything seemed perfect on the surface. But you know what they say about things that seem too good to be true. I guess I should have seen the signs. Sarah started working late more often, always with some excuse about a big project or a demanding client. She became more protective of her phone, always keeping it face down or taking it with her everywhere, even to the bathroom. But I trusted her completely, so I brushed off these little changes as nothing to worry about. Then came that fateful day last week. I came home early from work, hoping to surprise Sarah with dinner reservations at her favorite restaurant. But when I walked in, the house was eerily quiet. No Sarah. No note. And weirdly enough, her prized collection of vintage vinyl records, something she'd been building for years, was gone from our living room shelf. I tried calling her, but it went straight to voicemail. I texted, but no response. As I wandered through our suddenly empty-feeling house, I noticed other things missing too. Her favorite clothes, her laptop, even the stupid novelty mug I got her for our first anniversary. My heart started racing as I realized this wasn't just a quick trip to the store. I sat on our bed, my mind spinning, when I noticed her bedside drawer slightly open. Inside, I found a crumpled note. My hands shook as I unfolded it. It was from someone named Mike, talking about how excited he was to finally be together and mentioning a cabin by the lake. Her childhood sweetheart she'd always claimed was just a friend. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. The guy she'd always brushed off as just an old friend. The same Mike who'd shown up at our wedding looking like someone had pissed in his champagne. The pieces were starting to fall into place, and I didn't like the picture they were forming. I spent the next few hours in a daze, alternating between calling Sarah's phone and scrolling through her social media for any clues. That's when I stumbled across a photo on her Instagram from 2 weeks ago. It was of her hand holding a coffee cup, but in the background, I could see a man's watch. A watch I didn't recognize. How could I have been so blind? As the night wore on, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every moment of our relationship, trying to pinpoint where it all went wrong. Was it something I did? Something I didn't do? The what-ifs were driving me crazy. Around 3 a.m., I got a text from Sarah. I'm sorry. I need some time to think. Please don't try to find me. That's it. 5 years of marriage and all I get is a fucking text? I was livid. I wanted to scream, to break something, to drive to every goddamn lake cabin in the state until I found them. But instead, I just sat there, staring at my phone, feeling like my whole world was crumbling around me. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I couldn't face anyone, couldn't pretend everything was normal when my life had just imploded. I spent the day going through our photos, our memories, trying to understand how we got here. Then, around noon, Sarah called. My heart jumped into my throat as I answered. John, we need to talk, she said, her voice cold and distant. I agreed, and she said she'd come by the house in an hour. That hour felt like an eternity. I paced, I stress-cleaned, I rehearsed what I wanted to say. When the doorbell finally rang, I took a deep breath and opened it. There she was, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone in the world, suddenly looking like a stranger. Sarah walked in, her eyes darting around nervously. She looked different somehow, her hair was styled differently, and she was wearing clothes I'd never seen before. It hit me that these were probably things she'd bought for him. John, she started, but I cut her off. How long? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. She hesitated, then sighed. 6 months. 6 fucking months. Half a year of lies, of sneaking around behind my back. I felt sick. Why? I managed to choke out. Sarah had the audacity to look annoyed. It's not like that, John. Mike and I, we have a history. We reconnected and it just happened. I didn't plan this. Bullshit, I spat. You don't accidentally pack up your stuff and run off to a lake cabin. Sarah's face hardened. Fine. You want the truth? I've been unhappy for a long time, John. You're always so predictable. Mike excites me. He makes me feel alive. Her words cut deep. I'd always thought our stability was a strength, not a weakness. So instead of talking to me about it, you decided to fuck your ex behind my back? Don't be crude, she snapped. It's not just about sex. Mike understands me in a way you never have. I laughed bitterly. Oh, I'm sorry. Is that better? That you're throwing away our marriage for some high school fantasy? Sarah's eyes flashed with anger. It's not a fantasy. We're in love. We always have been. Marrying you was a mistake. That's when I lost it. A mistake? Our whole marriage was a mistake? Then why the hell did you stay with me for 5 years? Why were we talking about having kids just last month? Sarah's face crumpled, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of the woman I thought I knew. I didn't mean to hurt you, John. I tried to make it work, I really did. But when Mike came back into my life, I realized what I'd been missing all these years. I shook my head, disgusted. So what now? You're leaving me for him? She nodded slowly. We're moving to California. Mike got a job offer there, and we think it's a good opportunity for a fresh start. I felt like I'd been slapped. California? You're moving across the country with him? Just like that? I'm sorry, John. I know this is sudden, but... Sudden? I interrupted. No, Sarah. Sudden is a surprise birthday party. This is a fucking train wreck. She flinched at my words, but I was beyond caring. The woman I loved, the life we'd built together, it was all going up in smoke and she was holding the match. I want a divorce, Sarah said quietly, her eyes fixed on the floor. Those words hung in the air between us, heavy and final. I'd known it was coming, but hearing it out loud made it real in a way I wasn't prepared for. Fine, I said, my voice hollow. But I want answers first. Real ones, Sarah. No more bullshit. She nodded reluctantly. Did you ever love me? I asked, dreading the answer. Sarah hesitated, then spoke softly. I did, John. In my way. But it was never the same as what I feel for Mike. And the kids we talked about? Was that all a lie too? Her face twisted with guilt. I wanted to want that life with you. I thought if we had a family, maybe these feelings for Mike would go away. I felt sick. So you were willing to bring a child into this mess? Christ, Sarah. She started to cry, but I couldn't bring myself to comfort her. Not anymore. There's something else you should know, Sarah said, wiping her eyes. I'm pregnant. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. What? I croaked. It's Mike's, she added quickly, as if that made it better somehow. I stumbled back, gripping the kitchen counter for support. How long have you known? About a month, she admitted. A month. We'd had dinner with her parents just 3 weeks ago, talking about our future, and she'd known then. She'd sat there, smiling and lying through her teeth. Is that why you're leaving? Because of the baby? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Sarah shook her head. No, we'd already decided to be together. The baby, it just made everything more urgent. I laughed bitterly. Urgent? Wouldn't want your husband hanging around while you start your new family. Sarah's face hardened again. Look, John, I know you're hurt, but this isn't easy for me either. I didn't want things to end like this. Oh, I'm sorry, I spat sarcastically. Is your fairy tale romance with your high school sweetheart not going exactly as planned? My heart bleeds for you. She glared at me. You know what? This is exactly why I'm leaving. You never understood me, never supported my dreams. Mike does. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Never supported you? I worked 2 jobs so you could finish your degree. I encouraged you to start your own business. What the hell are you talking about? That's not what I mean, she said, rolling her eyes. Mike gets my soul, my passions. You just plod along, content with your boring little life. Her words stung, but they also ignited a fire in me. If my life was so boring, why didn't you say something? Why string me along for years? Sarah just shrugged as if my pain meant nothing to her. I thought I could learn to be happy with it. I was wrong. I felt a surge of anger unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. Get out, I said, my voice low and dangerous. Sarah blinked, surprised. What? I said, get out of my house. No. I was shaking with rage. But John, we need to discuss the divorce, the house. No, I cut her off. We'll do that through lawyers. I can't stand to look at you right now. She hesitated, then nodded. Fine. I'll have my lawyer contact yours. She walked to the door, then turned back. For what it's worth, I am sorry, John. I laughed bitterly. Yeah, I'm sure you're real torn up about it as you ride off into the sunset with Mike. As soon as the door closed behind her, I collapsed onto the couch, my mind reeling. My wife was gone. Pregnant with another man's child. Moving across the country. It felt like a bad dream, but I knew I wouldn't be waking up from this nightmare. The next few weeks were a blur of sleepless nights, too much whiskey, and endless conversations with lawyers. I threw myself into work, desperate for any distraction from the gaping hole in my life. My friends tried to help, but their sympathy only made me feel worse. How could I explain that my entire world had been a lie? One night, about a month after Sarah left, I was scrolling through social media. Yeah, I know, bad idea, when I saw it. A post from Mike's account. A sonogram picture with the caption, "Can't wait to meet our little miracle." Hashtag baby on the way, hashtag new chapter. I lost it. I hurled my phone across the room, hearing it shatter against the wall. Then I grabbed my keys and did something stupid. Really stupid. I drove to Mike's parents' house. I knew they still lived in town, and in my drunken, rage-filled state, I thought confronting them was somehow a good idea. I pounded on their door at 2 a.m., shouting for Mike. Mike's dad opened the door, looking confused and angry. "What the hell is going on?" he demanded. "Where's Mike?" I slurred, barely able to stand straight. "I want to talk to that home-wrecking bastard." Realization dawned on his face. "You must be John. Look, son, you need to go home. You're drunk." But I was beyond reason. No. I want to know why he thought it was okay to steal my wife. To get her pregnant. Mike's mom appeared behind her husband, looking worried. "John, please. This isn't the way to handle things." Their sympathy just made me angrier. "Did you know?" I yelled. "Did you know your precious son was fucking my wife behind my back?" Suddenly, I heard sirens in the distance. Someone must have called the cops. Mike's dad stepped outside, closing the door behind him. "John, you need to leave. Before you do something you'll regret even more." His words cut through my drunken haze. What the hell was I doing? I stumbled back to my car, fumbling with my keys. "Oh no, you don't," Mike's dad said, snatching the keys from my hand. "I'm calling you a cab. You're in no state to drive." I woke up the next morning with a pounding headache and a vague recollection of the night before. As the memories came flooding back, I felt a wave of shame wash over me. What had I been thinking? My phone was buzzing incessantly. I found it on the floor, miraculously still working despite a cracked screen. There were missed calls from my best friend, my sister, and Sarah. I listened to Sarah's voicemail, my stomach churning. "John, what the hell were you thinking? Mike's parents called me. They're not pressing charges, but Jesus Christ, John. Get your shit together." I deleted the message, feeling a mix of anger and embarrassment. She had some nerve lecturing me about my behavior after what she'd done. My sister's message was next. "Hey, little bro, heard about last night. I'm coming over." No arguments. True to her word, my sister Emily showed up an hour later with coffee and a no-nonsense attitude. "All right, spill," she said as she walked in. "What's going on with you?" I broke down and told Emily everything. The affair, the pregnancy, the confrontation, and my drunken escapade the night before. She listened without interrupting, her face a mix of sympathy and concern. When I finished, she sighed deeply. "Oh, John. I'm so sorry you're going through this. But you can't keep spiraling like this. You need help." I scoffed. "Help? What I need is for my wife not to be a cheating liar." Emily shook her head. "No, what you need is to process this trauma in a healthy way. I'm scheduling you an appointment with a therapist." No arguments. I wanted to protest, but I was too exhausted. Maybe she was right. Maybe I did need help. Fine, I conceded. But what am I supposed to do now? How do I move on from this? Emily squeezed my hand. One day at a time, bro. And you start by cleaning up this mess and taking a shower. You smell like a distillery. For the first time in weeks, I felt a tiny glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, I could get through this. The next few months were tough, but slowly I started to put my life back together. The therapy sessions Emily insisted on were actually helping. I was learning to process my anger and grief in healthier ways. The divorce proceedings were ugly. Sarah tried to claim half of everything, including the house I'd largely paid for. But my lawyer was a shark, and we managed to reach a settlement that didn't completely bankrupt me. I threw myself into work and picked up some new hobbies. I joined a local hiking group and started learning to play the guitar. Anything to keep my mind occupied and to rebuild my sense of self outside of my failed marriage. One day, about 6 months after Sarah left, I ran into her at the grocery store. She was visibly pregnant, and for a moment, seeing her swollen belly felt like a punch to the gut. But then I noticed something else. She looked tired, stressed, nothing like the glowing, expectant mother I might have imagined. "John," she said, sounding surprised. How are you?" I took a deep breath. "I'm doing okay, Sarah. How about you?" She hesitated, then burst into tears right there in the middle of the produce section. Seeing Sarah cry in public like that caught me off guard. Part of me wanted to comfort her, old habits die hard I guess, but another part reminded me of all the pain she'd caused. "Sarah, what's wrong?" I asked, keeping my distance. Between sobs, she managed to get out, It's all falling apart, John. He's not who I thought he was. He lost his job, he's drinking all the time, and he hit me last week." I felt a complicated mix of emotions, anger at Mike, concern for Sarah, and, I'm ashamed to admit, a twinge of satisfaction that her fairy tale hadn't worked out. "Have you told anyone? Your parents?" I asked. She shook her head. "I can't. I'm so ashamed. I threw away everything for him, and now." I sighed deeply. Despite everything, I couldn't just walk away from her like this. "Look, Sarah, you need help. Real help. Not from me, but from professionals. I'll give you the number of my therapist. She can refer you to some resources for domestic violence victims." Sarah nodded, wiping her eyes. "Thank you, John. I'm so sorry for everything." As I watched her walk away, I realized something important. I didn't hate her anymore. I pitied her, sure, but the anger that had been consuming me for months was gone. I was finally ready to move on. It's been a year since that day in the grocery store. I'd like to say I rode off into the sunset and everything's been perfect since, but life's not that simple. I still have bad days where the pain of betrayal feels fresh. But those days are getting fewer and farther between. I heard through the grapevine that Sarah left Mike and moved back in with her parents. She had the baby, a little girl. Part of me hopes they're both doing okay, but I've maintained my distance. That chapter of my life is closed. As for me, I'm slowly rebuilding. I got a promotion at work, I'm still playing guitar, badly, but enthusiastically, and I've even started dating again. Nothing serious yet, but I'm open to the possibility. If there's any advice I can give to someone going through something similar, it's this: allow yourself to feel the pain, but don't let it consume you. Seek help, professional help if you can. Surround yourself with people who genuinely care about you. And remember, healing isn't linear. You'll have setbacks, and that's okay. Most importantly, don't let someone else's actions destroy your capacity for trust and love. It's a daily choice to remain open and vulnerable, but it's worth it. Because at the end of the day, the ability to love and trust is what makes us human. To anyone reading this and relating to my story, hang in there. It gets better. You're stronger than you know. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you for watching my videos, sharing them, and supporting me along the way. Your views, comments, and likes are the driving force behind my passion to create captivating and unexpected stories. Every tale I share is more than just a plot. It's a journey of emotions, lessons, and reflections that we experience together. Your engagement brings life and soul to this channel. Thank you for sticking with me until the very end of each video, because the finale of every story is where the real impact lies. I promise to continue delivering twists and turns that surprise, inspire, and resonate with your hearts.